Hi, I'm Kitty Hurst for Vulture Hound magazine, and I am here with Andy Black.
Hello. I'm here.
He is here. So, are you excited for your show tonight?
Yeah, the whole tour has been amazing so far. We've had a bunch of sold out shows, and I think tonight just sold out, so very excited. It's we have a unique relationship with the UK, whether it's in Blackville or my solo stuff. Ever since the first time we came here, there's just been such a great reception, and that continues to this day. What's actually interesting to me is that the first shows I played as a solo artist on tour were here. We started the first shows for the Shadow Side tour were here in the UK, and so it's fun to come back and play songs that people actually know now. Because the first time we played here, I was playing songs that no one had ever heard yet, because the album wasn't out yet. So it's been fun to kind of see the growth there.
Oh, that's good. So, I know your dad is a big fan of the old punk bands. I was actually chatting with him the other day about the Damned and the Misfits. How instrumental was he in your music?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are introduced to music by the things that our parents have around.
Yeah.
For me, that was the Sex Pistols and the Damned and the Clash, and then also Lords of the New Church and bands like that. So that was the stuff that was my first real introduction into music, as well as bands like Kiss and AC/DC and Aerosmith. So that was certainly the beginnings of my music. And then, for me, also my mom listened to stuff like Bruce Springsteen, and so I really got into that. And I guess a lot of my musical tastes are kind of an amalgam of the things that I grew up listening to, because, I just kind of fell in love with it then, and I thought, oh, this is something I could do. But it really wasn't until I was a teenager and I started to find my own bands, whether it was Alkaline Trio or AFI or those kind of bands, that I started to think, oh, like, those people are not too unlike me. Like I could make something when I get a little bit older. And because when you're really young and you look at these bands that are 30 years in the past, it's very hard to see with perspective on how you could attain similar goals or have dreams that could ultimately end in you having a career like that. So when I found the bands that were more, current, that was when I started to feel like, oh, this is like an attainable thing for me.
That's cool. Yeah. I really like that you blend so many different genres into it. It's so good. The Ghost of Ohio is a character based on your personal anxieties and struggles. Did personifying them and writing the comic help ease them at all?
Yeah, I think for me, my whole life, the art that I've created, whether it's in the capacity of being in Blackville Brides or my solo stuff, or now we're working on a comic book, it's all been ways of exercising demons or taking the issues that I have and trying to externalize them and share them with people in a way that I feel is constructive for me. So one of the hardest things about songwriting or writing in general is that sometimes people feel the need to, or you inadvertently feel the need to try to write for what you think somebody's going to like, and I've always tried to avoid that and not necessarily pander, but I've been lucky in that my audience is connected in many ways with my struggles or the things that I feel, and so I've never had to change who I was to try to cultivate the audience.
Yeah.
The people that have been interested in the things that I've made have been largely people that were directly affected by emotions and things that I also felt. So creating the character was just kind of another branch of that, and taking an opportunity to, I've always loved comic books, I've always loved, obviously Batman and everything. But to create something that was a larger personification of the feelings that I had, and to kind of give it a name and make it look like this kind of comic book character.
It's really good. I love the album. It's so good. So, you've previously spoken out about the resentment you felt towards your hometown and at the start of your career. Has the Ghost of Ohio helped heal that, or did the healing inspire the record?
I think that the feelings that I had of positivity probably for where I'm from probably started to stem more from the kind of change in my lifestyle. Around 2015, summer of 2015, I stopped drinking, and I changed my diet, and I tried and failed to stop smoking, and eventually did stop smoking. So there were a lot of changes in my life, and one thing that kept coming back was the feelings that I had of enjoying my adolescence and thinking about things that were positive. Because in many ways, because I was so detached socially from other people, I looked at my childhood as such a negative thing and had so many negative connotations, not because of my home life, but because of a lack of socialization with other people or people that I enjoyed being around. So I kind of painted with a broad brush that it was all bad. And when I started going through kind of a change in my life personally, I started looking at the really good things and wanting to go back home more and wanting to spend more time with my family. And yeah, it kind of stemmed from that. And then spending more time at home just opened me up to thinking more about my childhood and the things and the not only the places that I spent my adolescence, but the imagery of the places that I was in, you know, whether it was like going to summer camp at this one place that was supposedly haunted or all those kind of things. And so I started kind of putting those pieces together. And I was working on, and have now completed, not necessarily a memoir, but a bunch of stories from my childhood that I'll eventually release with my friend Ryan Downey. And we did a whole book. And while I was doing that, the memories and the thoughts and all these things started to come back tenfold, because every day we were talking about these stories and I was writing things and sending them to him, and he was sending me articles about, well, this is what happened in that place or whatever. And it just kind of stemmed from there. And so my feeling of positivity towards my home kind of grew over the last like 5 years.
Wow. I really want to go to Cincinnati after watching one of your interviews where you was like talking about all the hidden things that you found out. I was like, wow, it's really haunted.
It's great for ghost tours.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to ask you about not drinking and your sobriety, because next week marks my 6th year of not drinking and being sober.
That's wonderful.
And when I had to do a show from not drinking and being absolutely wasted, I was terrified. So how has it affected your performance? Do you think it's better now? Because I think I was a better performer going sober.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think I was a different performer. I think that I probably had more unabashed rage on stage when I was drinking, because I'm someone who I internalize so much, and I have so much anxiety when it just comes to being in a situation in a room full of many people. Really not a show goes by that I don't start thinking about some crazy scenario during the show. And so the way that I would avoid that was by trying to silence that by drinking. And so I would, I'd be totally shit hammered and go on stage, and I had a certain element of just a reckless abandon because I was attempting intentionally to lower my inhibitions, which I think probably served well in some capacity for the performances, because there was a certain amount of just anger, inherently in it. I don't really harbor that anger, and it was mostly manufactured, and I think that's one of the things that's hard for people to maybe understand, is that when a performer is someone who is going on stage and maybe is showing a certain level of anger, perhaps that's not what they actually are inside, rather kind of a position or a pose that they're doing on stage. So it was hard for me to kind of find where I was in the mix of the anger and the drinking and the being on stage as a sober person. So it probably took me a couple tours to figure out how to do it. But I enjoy the shows a hell of a lot more now. I mean, it's just from a pure exhaustion standpoint.
Yeah.
When you're drunk and you're trying to get through an hour and a half set, it's very hard. It feels like
you think you're singing in the right pitch, and it's
but just even just from a physical standpoint, it's very hard to be hugely inebriated and have the stamina to get through an entire show. It's like tying both your arms behind your back and then jumping. It's just there's no reason to do it. And so a big part of me trying to stay in shape and be in a better position in my life is so that my performances are better. When we're finished with the show, I'm tired, but I'm not like I used to be, which was just out of my mind, had to lay down, blacked out,
Yeah.
So I think it's, every show is different. Now, for the exhaustion part of it, we're on a summer tour in the States, and it's very, very hot. And so we could play 30 minutes, and I'm dead tired because I'm jumping up and down, whatever. I talk about it all the time. I can't believe that I did so many Warped Tours where I was drinking so much, because it just seems like I don't understand how I even made it through.
I'm injured as well.
Exactly.
So if you could go back in time and give advice to young Andy, what would you tell him?
I've obviously been asked this question at different times in my life, and I think my answer it's always been kind of something similar to the idea that, keep heading down the road that you're going down. But to me now, younger Andy is any number of years difference in terms of whether it's 4 years ago or, whatever. So I would like to, I guess in many ways, there are certainly moments and times in my life where I felt like I acted like an idiot, you know, whether it's screaming at people on stage or whatever, that I wish that I could maybe sit down with myself and go, hey, you don't need to do that. But, you know, all of those moments and the things that you collect throughout your time, ultimately they wind up funneling into the person that you ultimately become. And for me, I've tried my best to become someone who is more open and kind and not so such a recluse and so kind of aggressive. You know, at least when it comes to my performance and everything, I've always been very sensitive and kind of a big baby in my personal life, but when it came to being on stage, I was, you know, angry and screaming.
Yeah.
And so I try to just be more open and have more fun on stage, and so maybe that's the advice I give myself, is just to enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. So I have one final question for you. What are you more afraid of, ghosts or being shot in the face with a Nerf gun with no throttles allowed?
Oh yeah, I have to say ghosts. I'm pretty convinced that in America, my bus right now, the back lounge, like I have a room in the back that's haunted. I'm pretty sure it's haunted.
Oh no.
So there's
He's shaking his head. He's like, no.
yeah, there's a bus ghost. And,
There's a bus ghost.
I have to open the door, turn on all the lights. I can't sleep at night. It's terrible. So specifically bus ghost.
And the bus ghost. I like it. You are pretty soft with the Nerf gun though.
I am. Yeah. Just a big baby in general.
It does hurt that we've got Nerf guns at home. We have Nerf wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hurts more than you would expect.
Yeah. I got it right in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understand.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That's all I have for you. You've been amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.